No, I can't. I don't know. I don't know. So no, I really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Like I said, like I was talking to you guys earlier, this thing has been going on for almost a year, and it just seems like it took us forever to like begin to have a voice, and and then we started getting some traction with some media, but you guys have all done media as well. So like, you'll spend all this time. I mean, I've had some friends that have like had media at their house for like 8 or 9 hours for like a 3 or 5 minute like sound clip. And it's just, you never know what they're going to say. And so I really just, I think the last straw for me was when the Secretary of Defense came in town, and he didn't meet with any families, and folks were just like fighting for a chance. And like, I think that was like, for me, that was it. I wanted to create a platform, and this is like so hokey, if you will, like to be on like Facebook Live, but like I'm trying to like figure out what platform that is. But for now, this is all I know how to use. But I just wanted to create a platform that like gave folks an opportunity to have a voice, to actually share their story uncensored, like whatever it is that they wanted to say, get it out of their system and like share their story, and then also like share information. And so I've been trying to do them on Fridays, sticking with the Aloha Friday theme. And then each week, and this is only my third session, but each week just try to bring on different groups of folks from different neighborhoods, different organizations. That way we can just like spread awareness and sort of like talk about what's going on. So I really wanted to like talk this week specifically about Kapilina. We kind of like have been talking about it throughout the week. Last week we talked a lot about medical, but on Friday when we did this, the first water main break happened. Actually, I think there was 2 last Friday. And so we had Catherine McClanahan on last week, and she still lives in Hawaii, and so she was able to kind of give us an update. And so I'm now tracking, just to catch everyone up to speed, that there's been 5. I think today was the 6th, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. Today was the 6th water main break. Is that what you guys are tracking?
I thought there was already 6, and then today would have been 7.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So we woke up. We were all chatting this morning when the one I think at Radford Terrace happened, and then there was one more. So it's just like become insane at this point. And but what I am tracking is there's been 6, possibly 7 water main breaks over the past week. And just in like Hawaii News Now just put out, and I also saw a message on the Joint Base website right before we hopped on, is that they have lifted the boil water advisory. Did you guys see that? Yeah, but Hawaii News Now did an article, you have to check it out right after we get off here. It said that the inspector that was going around doing some of the testing to check for bacteria, he noted that he smelled fuel in 2 different schools. So at Red Hill Elementary School and at the AMR CDC. So I think we were all kind of talking about how these water main breaks, none of us believe that it's a coincidence anymore. And I know we'll let T get into that because she has a really amazing theory that I want her to share. But so yeah, that's the latest and greatest. The boil water advisory has been lifted like as of like half an hour ago. And then I guess they're going to resume with defueling all of a sudden. So but anyways, I mainly wanted to talk this session about Kapilina, because for starters, like how I'm kind of tied to Kapilina is we used to live in Eva Beach before we ever lived on base. And so we, like most of my kids' pictures growing up and like at the beach are all at Kapilina. And so we spent a lot of time out there. I never lived there, but certainly enjoyed going out that way. And when the water crisis happened, I had, when I was going out to Kapilina before, I had no idea that the Navy water line existed there. Now I went out there like for weapons training and stuff. There's still a range out there. So I'd been out that way, but I didn't realize that Kapilina Beach Homes was on the Navy water system. So when this whole crisis happened, we were like, oh my God, like the people of Kapilina, like how are they getting help and stuff? And so I remember we went out there a couple of times really to deliver like some Just Well law packages to talk about our, like the law firm, and then also to help out with like money and stuff like that as far as hi. Hey, can you step up for just 1 second? Mommy, right back. For like water distribution and stuff. And so that's kind of, now that the water main break has happened again, like here we go, finding ourselves in the exact same position, right? And so I've been contacted obviously a couple times, even though I don't live there anymore, but like just about what's happening in Kapilina and how, it feels like it's like they're being forgotten about again? Or is water distribution happening? If so, is it from the military or is it from the landlords that you guys have there? So basically, I just wanted to like dive into all things Kapilina. But before we do, I know a lot of people, like, you guys are all pretty popular, so most people know you. But in the event that they don't, I just want to start off with introduction. So whoever would like to start, just quickly, like, you know, what's your name, family members, if you're interested in talking about that, how long you've lived in Hawaii, your affiliation to Kapilina, and then just if you could briefly describe like how we'll start with the jet fuel exposure first, like how that impacted your family, and then what else do we want to know? Some of you guys have moved, so like where did you move, when, and why, stuff like that. So the floor is yours, whoever wants to start.
I'll go first. My name's Aiden. I'm from Hawaii. I lived at Kapilina Beach Homes with Xavier, his son, girlfriend, their kids, my fiance, and our son. What else was there? Completely spaced out. Sorry, brain fog.
Let me help you out.
Okay, so we lived at Kapilina. I would say I think it was December 1st. Our property managers actually sent us an email, basically letting us know what was going on with Red Hill because it was on the news. But they also told us, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. Our water is safe. It's unaffected. You guys have nothing to worry about. But hey, we're just still going to give you a heads up about Red Hill because you guys have seen it in the news. We are on Navy waterline, but our water's fine.
No,
And then
that's not right, Aiden. They didn't admit to it being on the they kept saying that the Navy kept saying that we are not on the Navy water line.
yeah, but the reason why they sent
Not
us
in
that
December,
email
though.
is because of Red Hill.
Yeah, Red Hill, but they did not admit that the water was coming from the Navy. They were saying that we weren't on the Navy's water line, so
Yeah,
we are
that's
fine.
what I said.
No, you said that we're on the Navy water line, but we're fine. That's why I wanted to make sure.
Anyway, so they said that, and then it was December 3rd, and Xavier can get more into that because it actually is December 3rd is when his son got sick, but I'll briefly touch on it to kind of explain with my fiance. But December 3rd is when Jaden got sick and had to go to the emergency room, and then it was the following morning. My fiance, she had gotten sick after showering. By the time she got to work, she ended up having to go to the emergency room as well. She went 4 times in the month of December. And mind you, about the first week is when we were being told by our property managers that our water was safe and unaffected. And December 3rd, actually, Xavier and I both called the EOC line, the Navy's EOC line, and they told us, and I do have the recording, they told us there's been no reports from Iroquois Point. We're not on the Navy waterline system. We're not in an affected area. We don't have anything to worry about. So basically the same stuff that our property managers kept pushing out. And Xavier can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it was almost a week and a half before our property managers actually were honest and told us that we are on the Navy waterline system. And then after that, pretty much any update that we got, I didn't trust anything that our property managers were saying because they lied to us. So we got a lot of our updates and information from the Facebook groups, the joint base contamination support group and stuff. And then when did we leave? We left. We all decided that it was best for us to leave Hawaii, even though we didn't want to. But, you know, eventually I do feel like this is going to be something that's going to affect the entire island, sadly. So we decided to leave, and we all left at the end of March, beginning of April. My family and I now live in Las Vegas, which kind of sucks. The different vibe out here, people are way different. We moved in the middle of summer, so it was hot as hell when we got out here, which I'm not used to. I miss Hawaii's weather, but we're still kind of dealing with the effects and the symptoms. Brain fog is a big one for me, the headaches. I had major hair loss. Like I'm Polynesian and Portuguese. I have super thick hair. My hair is really, really thin now. My fiance, she had the rash on her skin. Her skin felt like it was on fire, headaches, vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, all of that. Um, Pretty much what everyone is dealing with and has been dealing with from the beginning. Our son is a very active, loud, energetic 3-year-old, but he was getting to the point where he wouldn't get out of bed. He would stay in bed. He had no energy, and when we would get him out of bed, he would just lay on the floor. And Xavier can kind of attest to the fact that Kaleo is super energetic. I mean, that kid is like just 24/7 energy, and for a while there was none of that, and that was really hard to see. Um, so that's kind of what we went through. I mean, Xavier and his family, we all kind of went through the same stuff. I mean, different symptoms, obviously, but very similar experiences. So I will pass it on to Sweet Tea or Xavier.
All right, I'm Xavier, and I also live with Aiden and them. When we moved into Kapilina, it was August 5th of 2021, and pretty much within I want to say a few weeks, I came down. Aiden, not to throw your business out there, but I'm going to had COVID, so he lost his sense of smell and never got it back. I think to today he still doesn't have it. So one day I came downstairs and I smelled fuel, and I was like, we don't have anything that's gas related in here other than maybe the water heater. And so we like try to check around the house and we couldn't figure it out. And I was like, that's weird, but I had to do it all myself because he couldn't smell anything. So I was wondering, I never figured out where that was coming from. And that was like around August or September. And then I noticed that there was a lot of times where I was very lethargic, and I had a second job, and I couldn't get myself off the couch. Every time I would come home to change and get ready for my next job, I would be stuck on the couch, and I would tell Aiden, "God, I really need to go, but I just can't move. Like, just have no energy." And there was many times where I had to call out of work because I couldn't get myself out of bed, and I never did that before. And then November came. I mean, still same symptoms, headaches, lethargy, all that. But then I think it was December 2nd that I had come home and I got a call from Jaden. He had left already to go to work, and he called me and he could barely speak, and he was very scared, and he was crying, and he was like, like my throat's closing up. My whole body is super itchy, and I said, okay, well, I'm on my way. By the time I got to his work, which was not too far away from the house, he was in the ambulance already, and I walked up, and I forgot what they're called. The people in the ambulance were scared. They looked at me with such worry, and that didn't give me any confidence. So now I'm thinking, well, shit, how bad is it that they're scared about it? And I had to keep myself calm because my son was struggling for every breath. So I had to talk him through it, like help him breathe slower, and his whole eyes were swollen shut, like he was squeezing out like any teardrop because of how swollen they were. So that was really scary. And at the ER, the first thing that the doctors go for is, oh, he had an allergic reaction. And I was like, okay, is that normal for a 17-year-old that's never had an allergic reaction in his life? And they're like, well, no. Like a couple minutes later, it hit me about seeing that baby. I don't know whose baby it was at Red Hill, that was shown in the news with all the rash all over his body. And that clicked. And I asked the doctor, I said, could that be, like a toxin from the jet fuel that's in the water? Because we are on Navy property that is now privately owned or rented or whatever. And he's like, well, yeah, that's a possibility. But then they let it go. That's it. That's as much as they gave me, right? And then right before Jaden was to be let go, I went and got him a soft sandwich. Like the bread wasn't toasted, so a soft sandwich. First bite, he had blood all over his sandwich. His gums were bleeding. That's rare. That, I mean, I've never seen that happen before. So, and then I showed the doctor, and or by the time the doctor got there, it was too late. They dried up. He ended up going to an allergist, and he read the report from the ER. He did his own, look at Jaden, and the first thing he says, he looks at me and he's like, "That was not an allergic reaction. That is total toxin, and I cannot help you with that because I'm not a toxicologist, and there's no toxicologist on the island." That's what he told me. Before we got into that office, the state toxicologist of Diane Felton from the Department of Health had called me to check on Jaden, and I told her, "Oh, I'm about to walk into the allergist office to see if that's what it was." She didn't tell me she was a state toxicologist. She just said, "I'm Dr. Diane Felton. I heard about Jaden. I wanted to know how he's doing, if he's got more symptoms, whatever." And so I told her. So after I got done with the doctor's office, I called her back. I'm like, "Hey, doc, they said it was toxic. It was not an allergy reaction, but he told me there's no toxicologist on island, so I don't know what to do." And she goes, "Oh yeah, well, just take care of him, and hopefully you guys will be good." That was it. And I have a letter from her where I told her, I said, "I just found out from seeing a YouTube video that you're on that you're the state toxicologist, and you didn't even help me. You didn't give me directions. You didn't like suggestions. Nothing. Like, why would you not help? You obviously know about these things. This is your field. How can you not help?" And she says, "Well, he was right. There is no toxicologist that see patients. There are like 2 or 3, including herself, on island, but they just don't see patients. So I don't know what they're good for then, because they're not helping." So it's just been frustrating like crazy. And Kapilina has been lying to everybody from the start. They didn't want to help us. Every time the community had to go out and look for help, and every time somebody said, "Okay, we're going to help you with water. We're going to help you with showers. We're going to help you with this," they'd say, "No, no, we're good. We don't need it. We're good." And then once we started going to the news and blasting them, then all of a sudden they were bringing in water. They had somebody had asked for us to use the showers at the 24-hour fitness. They got it approved. It was a community member. Kapilina later on sends out a message saying, "Oh, we got you guys showers at the 24-hour fitness." Took credit for it all. They took credit for all the water. They took credit for the showers. They took credit for everything they could take credit for that we had to work to get. And it was really
Well, and
frustrating.
then
And
they were blocking the news too. Remember when we started to
yeah,
do interviews and stuff? I just wanted to add that in
yeah,
there real fast, and then I'll mute myself.
yeah,
But they once they caught wind that, because me and Xavier were pretty vocal from the beginning, um, and once they caught wind of that, and that other people within the community were doing interviews, and that the news was coming in to interview them, they wouldn't even let the news stations in. They
yeah,
blocked them.
yeah. So we were actually sneaking them in our cars, because we're like, "No way, we're gonna get these people in so they can come smell
Like
it,
they
look at
wouldn't.
it."
Sorry for interrupting. They wouldn't let
Yeah,
them come into like Catalina.
No, the security guards, they would block them, and actually, Senator Kurt Favela was out there one time.
and he was approved by the
Yeah,
school.
because he was going to do an interview at the elementary school there, and the security guards blocked the news station. I can't remember what news station it was. I think it was Hawaii News Now, but
I
don't
think it
quote
was
me on
Mahalo.
that.
Yeah,
And he went off on the security because they would not let them in. And so instead, what they did was they set it up in front of the Kapilina Beach Homes sign right by the entrance, and he did the interview out there. And I feel like my fiance Mandy and Jaden maybe also went out there, Xavier, for that interview, because they wouldn't let them in at all. And they didn't give a clear reason, except for the management just said no.
yeah. They didn't want anybody to, come in the property, maybe get some samples or whatever.
No,
So that's why we had to start sneaking them in, because we
they
were
were
like, well,
blocking.
They should have told him,
Hey,
what was that restaurant on Kapilina? They should have said they were just going up to the
Well,
Delish.
because Kapilina, even though it is a private beach, but it still is a public beach, like during the day, and they had brought that up. Like you can't deny people, access to the beach. It's public, and so we, like Xavier said, we were sneaking them in, and we were also telling them to come in unmarked cars, that it didn't have the news logo, hide your equipment, and if they still won't let you in, like give them our name and address, and if they still won't let you in, we'll come out there and grab you and bring you in through the gate. And it's the same thing with, Xavier mentioned already, the resources. There was actually a nonprofit organization that I was in contact with, because they wanted to bring portable showers into Kapilina. They had like two or three trailers, and I think each trailer had two or three portable showers on there. They wanted to bring it in, set it up, one in the parking lot, one by the splash park, another one, closer to the beach for those homes. And Kapilina management said no. So then they were like, okay, well, there's I can't remember the name of the church, but there is a church parking lot over there by Kapilina outside of the gate, and they thought about doing that, and Kapilina said no. And it's like, well, how can you say no to that you don't even own the church? So then Kapilina said the best that we can let you do is let you guys come into the community and help pass out the cases of water. So it's like every time a nonprofit organization tried to help our community, Kapilina kept saying our community's good. There's been no complaints. Nobody's sick. Our water's fine. We don't need all that.
well, first of all, they don't want to admit that there's anything wrong. Second, they don't want to stop and have people wonder, oh, what's going on, of the people that are trying to move in who are looking at places.
Yeah.
They didn't tell any of those new people
Mm-mm.
anything about it, because we would stop people and be like, you don't want to move in here, I'm telling you, this
They're
place has
still not.
toxic water. And no, they're still not. They don't want to. They lost so many people because of this, that they were trying to fool people into coming in. Even when there was water, people were like, oh, is that like for all the residents? They didn't know what was going on.
So I just want to add too, and you know what? At this point, I don't really even care. But Kapilina was also trying to, get some of us that were the most vocal, trying to push us out in a way. I know they offered NDAs to a couple residents. They offered no fees to break the lease, and this, mind you, this was before they actually ended up making a public statement that they weren't gonna charge any fees to break the lease. Before they made that statement, some of the residents that were pretty vocal, a couple of them were maybe a little more vocal than me and Xavier, or had a different way of being vocal than me and Xavier. They wanted them, hey, you know what? No, we're not going to charge you any fees to break your lease, but hey, sign this before you leave. And it was an NDA.
Wow.
And that was before lawsuits and everything. The class action suits and stuff. That was before all that. And that tells me right there, they know they messed up. They know they were in the wrong. They don't want any of us talking. I mean, Xavier and I, we were probably one of the first ones in the community to do an interview, and it was with, what was the Empire Files. They came out there. They were covering Red Hill. I know that they talked to some military families, and then they came. I got in contact with Mikey, and he brought them out there. And I know that one kind of took off for the community. And then next thing we know, NDAs are being offered. No fees to break your lease, all of that. And it's like, no.
Wow. Okay, I have lots of questions about some of
You're
the stuff that you
muted,
guys just talked
Xavier.
about, but I want to get to you on here.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, as in I'm T, Sweet T on social media. But the reason why I'm here is I ended up helping Kapalina out when when I heard all the military people came to the rescue for other military and was putting everybody in hotels, but they were leaving all the civilians behind. I actually knew about the spill on November 21st. I guess it was before you guys got word. My brother had called me and was like, hey, did you hear? And I'm like, hear what? I'm in Dallas right now. He's like, well, Red Hill just leaked. I went, oh. And then, you know, I tried Googling it. I couldn't find it. And then the very next day, I found it. And I was like, you need to move. And he's like, why? I went, because you are on the Navy waterline. And he's like, what? I go, dude, you're in Kapilina. That was Iroquois Point. That is Navy housing. And he's like, well, we're fine. My brother's in denial. I love him to death, but he's so in denial. But apparently they were drinking, they were using bottled water anyway for as far as drinking and cooking and stuff. But you know, I really, really got pissed with the military. Like, they just triggered my PTSD right up. And I was like, my brother lived out there. What can I do? Not only because my brother lived out there, but I know there was civilians there. And I came across one of Aiden's interviews. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to look this dude up on Facebook. And then I started messaging him. And that we started, you know, going back and forth, talking. And, you know, I started doing videos on TikTok just as far as awareness goes and how much the Navy is lying to everybody. And we need to wake up because it's not just military. This is an island-wide problem. And they kept trying to say, oh, military water lines. Oh, well, there's a watershed here. There's a watershed there. Dumbass. It's one aquifer. But they're trying to play it down like it wasn't, you know? And even more so that irritated me. Can you take them?
So I have a quick question.
Sorry.
Going back to what we were talking about, what you guys are talking about. So obviously I'm an active duty service member. As soon as I didn't because we lived on Fort Island, we were kind of like in the same boat as you guys. Like in the beginning, there was just specific housing neighborhoods that were impacted. Like I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Red Hill before I moved to Hawaii. So I didn't know. I was just taking everyone's word for it. So when someone says Fort Island's not impacted, I just believe them. And we kept drinking the water like a bunch of idiots. Like I just have so much guilt about that. But like we were just kind of, you know, doing as we were told and we were just listening. So in the beginning, I wasn't getting like water from, you know, the different water distribution points. And we didn't move out of our home until we ended up in the hospital. So my husband and my son ended up on the 11th of December. And then my daughter and I ended up on the 13th. And on the 13th, we ended up evacuating from our homes. But so I'm saying that to say, like, yes, we were part of that crew who did get TLA. So, you know, like, so our hotels, you know, able to wash our clothes, you know, shower and all of that. So what I wanted to know, hearing it from you all, and you guys have already sort of touched on it, is, well, first and foremost, when were you were you first, because I kind of heard both of you, were you first notified, like the news or from your residential housing office or from the military? Was there ever any sort of, you know, because the military has been preaching this like transparency, like communication, that's like our number one priority. Did you guys as residents there ever hear from the military? Like how did you find out first, like confirm there's a jet, like officially there's a jet fuel leak, the water in your home is likely contaminated, it's
Well,
not safe?
the
Where did that
Navy
communication come from?
the Navy never officially confirmed that Iroquois Point, Kapilina Beach Homes was an impacted area. You know, as I said already, and Xavier confirmed too, was our property managers in the beginning said that we weren't impacted. We weren't on the Navy water lines.
Same here. We got the same spiel.
So honestly, we just kind of, because Xavier and I already knew that Iroquois, or that Kapilina Beach Homes used to be Iroquois Point. I know that because when my grandpa was in the Navy, he was stationed out there. And so when Red Hill, I mean, we saw it on the news, and then, you know, with the symptoms that we were experiencing in our house and what we were seeing on Facebook and stuff, Xavier and I talked about it, and we were kind of like, hey, you know what? It doesn't make sense that they're saying we're not on Navy waterline system because this is old Navy housing. And there's no way in hell that they would have rerouted those
No.
pipes. Or I mean, I obviously don't know what that entails, but I know for a fact the military is cheap, and there's no way in hell they would have paid to reroute those pipes so that the water wasn't coming from the Navy waterline system. And there's no way in hell that I think it was Graystar at the time. Graystar would have paid the money to reroute those pipes and not have the water come from the Navy. I mean, it's cheaper to just leave the pipes. So
Cheaper to keep her.
we kind of put two and two together, and then it was even more confirmed, at least for us, when more and more residents within our community were experiencing the same symptoms as what we were experiencing. I know that there's emails from the property managers where they more or less confirmed it, but not confirmed it, if
So
that makes
once
sense.
it was like unofficially confirmed, so the first time you officially unofficially heard, it was from your property manager. But did any military officials ever come
No,
out to Kapilina and
we
like
kept
talk to the
requesting town halls with the Navy because I know that they were doing town halls with you guys, and I know that me and Xavier both reached out to our property managers, and we were like, we want a town hall, not with you guys, we want it with the Navy. Why is the Navy only talking to, the active duty military members? Why aren't they out here? We're old Navy housing. We're getting water from them. We are affected, whether the Navy wants to admit it or not. We are affected. There's a bunch of civilians, and the crazy thing about it is that there were active duty members living in that community and still are living out there, and they were even requesting it. But we were told that we had to go to the town halls on base. Well, okay, dum dum. There's civilians out there. How the hell are they going to get on base? I have base access because I'm a disabled veteran.
right.
So I have an ID, so I could take my house. But what about everybody else? So that made no sense to me. Why would you tell a community of civilians, hey, come to base, but you're not going to get access to come to the town hall, but you can still try?
Right. And
Yeah,
So
they really they mess with us so much. And then what was the thing? Oh, I'm sorry.
like
Go ahead, Mandy, because I totally
no,
forgot.
no, no, like okay, so like what was the solution from either your property manager?
there,
I know that at some point the military was dropping off water. Like I remember going out there and there was like a big
yeah,
water
so
buffalo and there was a couple of pallets of
that
water.
actually came from Representative Matt Lopresti. The
Yeah,
initial
he started it.
load, or I guess semi-load of water, or
Yeah.
truckload of water, was from him because I talked to, I can't remember her name, Linda something, Navy PR basically. I know Sweet Tea spoke with her as well because Sweet Tea was actually the one.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, she T was like, hey, here's what's going on. I talked to Navy PR. This is what they're saying. I was like, what's her number? Let me call her. So I called her, and she told me that she spoke with the property managers, Kapilina property managers, because they offered to donate water. Is what she said. I really don't believe her. But she said that the property managers said, no, we don't need it. So then I called the property managers, and they told me, basically, I don't know what you're talking about. We never heard from Navy PR. They say our area is unaffected. We don't need water out here. So then I got in contact with Senator Kurt Favela. He got me in contact with Rep. Matt Lopresti. I reached out to him and I kind of told him what was going on, and I believe Xavier talked to him too, maybe even T. I can't remember, but I know there was a few of us that talked to both of them. And then next thing we know, water is getting delivered, and it was Matt Lopresti. And I want to make that clear because the Navy and Kapilina management took credit for that, but it wasn't them. They didn't do anything. They didn't care about our community.
I heard that at some point well, I went out there at some point, and there was a water buffalo, and there were pallets of water out there, but the folks that were actually distributing it were folks from the Red Cross.
Yeah,
And
that's the nonprofit organization that reached out to me for the showers.
yeah. So
The
they were
water
telling
buffalo came
me
from the
that
army.
yes, the Navy is like they'll have a crew that comes out here and drops water off, but they didn't provide any details. So if you were to go to the water distribution point at the main PX or NEX or at Hickam or at, I think it was like Hatland Park, like they had them all over the place. They actually had like military details of folks. But for Kapilina, they did it differently. They just dropped the water off, knowing that that's a community of civilians
When
essentially,
they
and they didn't provide a detail. So the
when
Red
they had
Cross
the
was out
water
there when I was
truck
there.
out there initially, I know that they did have I'm not sure if it was Navy, but there was some military personnel in the beginning with the water truck. And then the water truck wasn't there for that long, and then when the water truck went away, they brought the big huge water buffalo that just freaking sat there.
Right.
And then the Navy or military personnel, they went away, and then it was the volunteers of the nonprofit that were doing that. But here's the crazy thing: when they did the water buffalo, the spigot or spout, whatever it's called, was so low that when they turned it on, they couldn't even get, because we had those 2.5 and 5 gallon bags, we couldn't even fit it under there. So then we had to ask the Navy and the property managers to come out and lift that water buffalo up on some pallets or whatever, so that we could actually have access to the spigot. And also the volunteers that were running the water buffalo, I mean, I'm so thankful to them for helping out, but they would just let it run. And then at one point, they were helping us fill up the bags and stuff, but at one point they would just let the water buffalo run, and it was like, just stick your thing under there and get some water. So then we were doing it on our own.
Well, let me also say that when we asked for the army to come and pick up that big ass tank and so that we can get under the water spigot, they never did that. The
No,
one,
they didn't.
the volunteer guy, I forgot his name. I'm sorry, but
Pono.
Pono.
Someone's got
he
to
made.
mute their phone. It's kind of loud. I'm having trouble hearing you, Xavier.
Oh, sorry, it's probably me because of the car, my son's car. Um he rigged it. He put some pipe thing. I don't know how he did it, but he got it so that the pipe would come up and the water would flow out. It was because of him that we were able to get that water for potable water.
Yeah.
But sometimes the water would have like at one point it was coming out yellow. It was just
Yeah,
disgusting. It
we
was
asked
bad.
if they could replace the water, because that's the thing, is like it would just sit there, and yeah, people were coming to get water and stuff, but it wasn't being emptied, I guess, fast enough. So like the water was just sitting in that tank, and then as Xavier said, it was coming out yellow. I can't smell, but I know some other residents were saying it had a funky smell to it.
Oh,
It
boy.
It's
tasted
kind of
weird.
slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the military coming out to test the water in those water
No.
buffaloes?
No, we
Okay.
They were
asked.
supposed to.
So just to be clear, they did provide minimal water, but they didn't provide a detail. So, and it sounds like the water that they did provide wasn't even quality. They weren't testing it. And you guys were kind of on your own to figure out how to get potable water.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
going
we
back to like the shower situation and like laundry and stuff like that, was there ever a solution, or did it become you guys can go to 24-hour fitness? You don't have to pay for that, right? Or like was that offered to everyone at some
um
point or
the
no?
24-hour fitness was, but as Xavier said, that there was a fellow resident that was able to set that up for us. Eventually there was a laundry service, but that didn't come from the military. There's a resident in the community that owns her own laundry service company, and she actually uh, did a deal or whatever with Kapilina management. And I mean, they came around and they did our laundry and stuff. And then,
And
Oh,
they
but
would
yeah,
give us
none of
credit.
that.
so so the
Yeah,
thing
they,
with
they gave us
the
laundry credit.
laundry, it was the same laundry service that was being offered to to the military side. So it's the same. It's the same company.
Okay, I didn't know about
just so
that.
happens we're related somehow, but she from the get-go, like as soon as she got the contract for the military, she was trying to get it in Kapilina because she lives there, and Kapilina was dragging their ass,
Yeah.
dragging, and it wasn't until what's her face got sick and never she either got sick, never showed up for work, or she got fired. What was her name?
Yeah, she was the
Oh,
main manager at Kapilina.
yeah.
She
She
just
was
okay.
the
So what happened was she was going around people's homes, and she was like, "Oh, I don't smell anything." And then she'd grab a glass of a cup of their one of their cups, grab some water, drink it. Oh, I don't taste anything. It's fine. And then lo and behold, like a week or two later, she
yeah.
disappeared. Nobody knew what was going on. They wouldn't tell
She
us
didn't get fired
anything.
though. She didn't get
No, because
fired
she
though.
ended up coming back.
Yeah, because when the Navy came out to flush the homes, she was there at our home anyway. She was there, and she
But I
was
don't think she was in the same capacity as being the boss of the boss there.
no,
Yeah.
but
What
yeah,
about like
she
water testing? Was that available? Like if you call the EOC and you're like, I live in Kapilina Beach Homes, I
mm-mm.
smell or taste something, or I want to know if the water in my home is safe or not, were they offering to come out to your home and test the water?
No, because every time, at least for me, every time I called the Navy EOC,
Right.
they just kept telling me Iroquois Point is not an impacted area. There's nobody that's been reporting symptoms, blah, blah, blah. And I even called them out on it. I was like, that's not true because I was like, my brother called, the day before and reported that his son was sick. But you're sitting here telling me that there's been no reports. I was like, I was standing right there when he called you. And then it was
Same
just like
line they gave everybody who called. Same
Yeah.
and
line.
And
Oh, we
then
haven't heard
I
anything from
was
Kapilina.
I called around Bordeaux. I called like 5 different lines on Bordeaux water supply until I finally got somebody who knew something, and I asked them if they were doing testing for Kapalina, and they said that they have a team that was going out, and they were doing section by section, but they wasn't testing everybody's homes. They were only testing, if somebody called and said, hey, I want my water tested. So it wasn't, they weren't going to every single door and having it
oh,
tested.
somebody
So
just
that's what it
um,
was.
someone just commented, I didn't actually know this, that the Kapalina was trying to restrict testing and they tried to keep testers out too. I completely forgot about that. But
Mm.
yeah, Kapalina, I mean, that's true. They were literally trying to keep everybody out. Anybody, the media. I think at one point they even tried to keep Kurt Favela and Matt Lopresti from coming in. They just didn't want, I guess, the bad press, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever, Xavier and I were doing interviews and stuff, and the more and more interviews we were doing and the more vocal we were becoming, all the interactions after that, because prior to that, they were super rude, super dismissive. But the more we were pushing it out in the media, then they were really nice. I mean, at one point, I was home and the I guess branch manager or regional manager or whatever, and a couple people from corporate, and this was when it was still Graystar, showed up at my house unannounced. Like they knocked on the door, I answered it, and they're like, "Hi, I'm so and so, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Okay, why? What are you doing at my house?" And they're like, "Well, we've been getting reports that you guys are having some issues with your water. We just kind of want to know," like being super super nice. And I was just like, get out of here, because I've been trying to contact you guys for how long, and now you want to come to my house unannounced? Like that's what ticked me off the most, is that they just showed up. And I know that our house wasn't the only one they did it to. They did it to a couple other residents that were pretty vocal as well. You're muted, Xavier.
Yeah, Xavier, we can't
I'm
hear
gonna say
you.
something real quick because I'm gonna drive and it's gonna be really loud. So one thing I also wanted to mention is when they came and did the home flushings, um, I wasn't home. Aiden was home for all this, but for until what, like a month after we left, there were still oil stains on the outside of our building, of our house,
Yeah,
and
I
I
took
like
pictures of it,
and
and I
videos, yeah. And there was water. There was like the little black rocks that are around the outside of the building were all in the area that the flushing part touched is black and oiled up, and the other ones are just the regular gray looking pebbles. So I took all those pictures and sent them to the attorneys because I'm like, look at this. If this was
yep.
supposed to be clean coming out, then why is there an oil slick all on my wall
I
outside of
asked
my
them
house?
about
Let's
that
talk
when
flushing
they.
really quick. So did they, you know how like this was a big thing. This is why I became a huge outspoken advocate because I don't know if you guys remember, but I denied access to my home and I made like a video about it and I got a lot of
Oh,
trouble
right.
for it. You guys
Yeah.
remember that? Um,
Yeah.
but that was my famous move apparently. Military didn't like that too much. But either way, so I denied access to my home because the rules, the what they set in place was that they were going to do this community-wide flush, then they were going to test the water and they were going to give the residents peace of mind and like share test results, and then they were going to come in and do individual home flushing, which made sense in my mind. But after AMR, because AMR was like the test dummy and like they failed, like the community flush didn't work for them. And so then they came over to Fort Island and they tried to come in our homes and like subject not only our service members, who were our most junior service members, who were the ones flushing it. I went around asking, none of them knew if the water that they were handling without proper PPE, by the way, like was contaminated or not. And they didn't tell us residents. And I was like, get out of here. You are not, I don't care if I live in government house or not. Like, you want to come in here, then move all my crap out. Like, this is wrong. And I'm not subjecting like those people either. So my question with saying all of that is, did they tell you guys? So they came out and they did like a community like GAC flush rate, like they did with us. And then did they tell you when they came back for individual home flushing if the water in your house was safe or not?
No, so when at least when they came to our home, I will say one of the things that cracked me up the most, and I actually called them out on it, was they didn't know what the hell they were doing. Like they were literally, I caught them watching a YouTube video on how to
Yeah,
properly flush a home,
same.
and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they said, "We're here to flush your home." And I said, "I understand that, but why are you watching a do-it-yourself video on YouTube? Like, what the hell is that?"
They use
And
the
then,
most, I mean, we all know it. They use the most junior folks, which is
yeah,
fine. But
yeah,
like I'm an HR girl, and there were people in my office, there were people in my neighborhood who are not water experts who just got put on this detail. You guys know how it works because some of you guys were in the military, right?
yeah,
Like these random folks just got put on this detail, and they were given like an iPad with step-by-step directions with no proper PPE.
yeah.
And
I was gonna say that
oh, by the
they,
way, people had like massive issues even after that. Like there was a gal in my neighborhood, they didn't flush it properly, and then they left some water running because they didn't know how to properly like work the pipes and whatever. And
yeah,
these people lost everything. Their houses were filled with mold.
yeah,
Because you know they went back to live in the hotel and they came back and their homes were just, they lost everything. And speaking of that, that's another thing I want to ask you, because then I want to move on and start, like, I want to talk about your various organizations and what's going on tomorrow and all of that. But that was another thing I wanted to ask you. So like we in the military have the opportunity. So let's go back really quick. So we all know that this is a Navy issue, and it sounds like Kapilina did not get the same respect and or support that folks who lived on the military bases did. And so that was, obviously you guys didn't get any sort of like TLA or any sort of stipend to go live in a hotel. You had to stay in the environment. They
yeah,
did not come out and personally speak to your community. They didn't do a town hall for you guys. They supplied subpar, if any, water. They didn't give you guys washers and dryers, and they didn't offer shower facilities like they did every other military base that was impacted. But yet, Navy problem, and you guys were on the Navy water line, and they treated you like it didn't matter. Is that a good summary?
yeah. That you hit it nail on the head. That,
Okay, just
or
make sure.
head on the
That's
nail,
what I expect it to
whatever.
be, but that's like you guys have said that, and I just wanted to like sum that up for everyone. The other part I wanted to ask you about is, was the expectation, so we obviously in the military, and my biggest thing is, and this has been all along, is that regardless of DoD affiliation, this was a Navy problem and they should have taken care of it for everyone that was impacted, because it didn't spare you guys. Like
Right.
this contamination did not spare the folks in Kapilina. And so was there any sort of like reimbursement for all of your personal use plastics or porous items? Like your baby clothes, your mattresses, your bottles, like things like that?
So
Or was the expectation that your insurance company just like took care of it?
So we eventually were offered the reimbursement. In the
Oh,
beginning, we weren't offered anything. I mean, I even called as a disabled veteran. I called the EOC for the Navy and for the Army, and I was like, hey, I'm a disabled vet. Here's the situation, blah, 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 blah. Is there any benefits for, the veterans out here at Kapilina? Because I figured at least maybe that's something, right? And they said, no, you're only a veteran. And I said, what do you mean I'm only like, that pissed me off, because I was like, are you serious? And I was like, so what about the veterans and the ones that have retired and the civilians out here at Kapilina? And they're like, we're only helping active duty. If you're not active duty, you don't get TLA, you don't get anything. And I said, okay, well, what about, the items that you just mentioned, like our plastics and baby clothes and, stuff like that? And they said, eventually, maybe Kapilina will be offered reimbursement, but as of now, that's not going to happen because you're not in an impacted area. So, as I said, eventually, yeah, we were offered the reimbursement, but that still took some doing and some fight, because they weren't going to offer us anything at all. And I honestly feel like the only reason why the Navy extended it out to Kapilina is because of the news and media coverage that Kapilina was getting.
yeah. I have to
And the
ask a
lawsuit.
really random question that's completely unrelated. I'm tracking that T and Xavier are both on island right now, but why is
Yes.
it like pitch dark where you're at, T, and it's like very light where you're at, Xavier? What is going on?
I'm in Walmart garage.
Oh,
That's why.
I'm like, hold on, wait. Why is it dark where you're at and light where you're at? Okay, so I want to transition now because I feel like I have a clear understanding, and it really, bottom line, it really freaking sucks how you all were treated. And it sounds like it's happening, the exact same thing is happening right now with this main water break. So I want to talk quickly, and I want you guys to be able to explain it, because sometimes I think there's some confusion about Oahu Water Protectors and then shut down Red Hill Mutual Aid and like some of the different organizations. Can you all, for the people who are listening, explain how those organizations like came to be and what the mission is, and like how you guys differ and how you work together? Could someone explain that to us?
So Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid Collective actually came about
Y'all got me
kind of organically, because so when all this with Red Hill and Kapilina first started, I contacted pretty much anybody and everybody that I could think of.
Right.
Whether it was like Representative Matt Lopresti or Senator Kurt. I mean, I literally went on Google and I typed up a list, and I started sending emails and messages like as much as I could. And I actually found out that her name is Heilani, and she did a lot for Mauna Kea. And I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the route I need to go, is I need to reach out to fellow Kanakas and not to the government, because the government's not going to do shit. So I messaged Heilani on Instagram and I kind of gave her just a brief rundown of what was going on. And I gave her my number. She called me. We spoke. She got me in contact with Mikey, who is part of Oahu Water Protectors, and he's just an overall great guy.
Was Oahu Water Protectors already established, like from back in the 2014 spill? Or
I'm not 100% sure on that. I want to say they were, but I'm not 100% sure.
Do you know? It doesn't matter. I don't know if she can hear me, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
But so then Mikey and I, that's when we did the interview for Empire Files and stuff. And then as I said, Mikey's part of Oahu Water Protectors, and he just kind of helped out a lot within the community. And actually, one of the things that we ended up doing was we did our first supply and water distro was Christmas morning. And how that came about is Mikey introduced us to some other members of Oahu Water Protectors and some people that helped a lot during Corona or COVID, excuse me. And they had an organization called Corona Cares. I think that was the name of it. And it was basically just a collective of people that wanted to help out, people that were affected, families that were affected. So we all kind of got together. I met them, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on at Kapilina? What do you guys need? Here's what we can do to help." And then that's kind of how Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid Collective came about and was formed. At the time, we didn't have a name. It was just a group of us that wanted to help out Kapilina and eventually move on to help out other communities and stuff. But the main focus is on Kapilina only because there's a lot of civilians out there, and it's Old Navy housing, but the military's not helping out Kapilina at all. So that's kind of how Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid came about. Oahu Water Protectors, we do collaborate with them. Actually, tomorrow, Saturday, there's another water distro at Kapilina, and I believe Oahu Water Protectors is collaborating on that one. They are two separate groups. I know they get mixed up a lot, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, there's members of OWP that's part of Shutdown Red Hill and vice versa.
Right.
But they are two separate groups that are basically, they're doing the same thing. They're fighting for safe and clean water for the entire island and to, defuel Red Hill and basically get the military out of there. But yeah, they are two separate groups.
So if folks want to contact someone do you guys have a social media website, or like who's in charge that if folks want to get involved, volunteer, help, donate, who should they reach out to? Like who's kind of like the organizer?
So,
is it you, Aiden?
I mean, they can definitely reach out to me. They can reach out to Mikey. I always mess up his last name, but I mess it up. I'm not gonna butcher it, but there you go. But you can look us up on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. It's Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid. We're on all social media platforms. I do share a lot of it on Facebook as far as the Iroquois Point page and the Kapilina residence page. And I can send it to you too, Mandy, so that, if you want to share, because we do have a Venmo set up for the supply drops and distros and stuff. So I'll share all that information with you.
Yeah, let's talk about that too. So you already kind of mentioned it. I imagine that T is at Walmart right now, probably gathering some supplies for tomorrow anyways, but can we put a plug in for the event, time, location? How can people help? Do you need volunteers? What supplies do you need? All of the things.
Tomorrow specifically, they're only doing water.
Okay.
And the reason why we decided to just do water distro is because of the water main breaks. And that there's still a lot of people in Kapilina who either have no water pressure or very little water pressure. And so, because whenever we did the distros, they were doing supply packages as well. But tomorrow's main focus is just water. I believe that they actually have quite a few pallets full of water. I don't have the flyer on hand right now, but that's another thing I'll send to you.
Okay.
And I'll share it as well on Facebook. But they do the distros right outside the entrance to Kapilina, which cracks me up. Because prior to that, because Xavier and I lived at Kapilina, they could get in with us. But since we no longer live there, they're not letting them in Kapilina. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll just set it up right at the entrance. So that's what they do. And I think tomorrow's distro starts at 10, and I want to say it goes to 1. So 10 to 1. And then next Sunday, they're going to be doing a community picnic at Kapilina. I don't know the time offhand, but that's something I'll share with you. But so what they do is once a month they do community picnic, and once a week, it's usually every Saturday, they do some kind of water and or supply distro at Kapilina. And right now, their main focus is Kapilina, as I already said. But eventually, they do want to move on to help the other communities. But the issue is there's a lot of community members that need help, but not a lot of people are volunteering to help. And shut down Red Hill, I mean, it is there's quite a few people in it, but it's not a super huge group. So it's kind of they don't want to be spread thin is
Okay.
what it is.
So I just looked up your flyer, and it, like, just for the people who are listening, the Venmo that folks can donate to is at Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid.
Yeah.
If folks want to just do, if you don't live on the island and you want to donate funds, please go to at Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid, common spelling, on Venmo, and that money, as I understand it to be, will be used for water distribution.
Yep.
To help out that community.
Yeah, water distribution, supply packages. I know we had talked about possibly doing like a match to match kind of thing where, if one person donates a case of water, a pallet of water, someone else will match that. I don't think we're doing that for tomorrow. It's too late already, but that was something we discussed in the meeting last week.
Okay. Let me see. We're kind of coming up. Well, we just hit our 1 hour mark, but I want to. We talked about. I just have like a couple of notes to just make sure we're all like. We talked about tomorrow's event. We talked about the difference between Oahu Water Protectors and mutual aid. Oh, I want to know. T, are you available to talk? Because I want to know. I want to know your theory about the water main breaks.
Okay, so my theory is that the wells that were shut down, the ones that were contaminated with the fuel, I believe they opened them all up at the same time, which caused those 3 main water main breaks. Because how come it didn't happen anyplace else at the same time? You know what I mean? Like, hello. And then I sent you guys the video on what Kathleen Ho said. She's from Department of Health. How she said that they had to fix the water lines because of the pressure for the defueling lines. Why does it matter what a water line does if you're defueling on a completely different, at least supposed to be different, set of pipelines, right? And then I spoke to this Navy chief who works on Fort Island, and he was telling me that last week in Hawaii Kai, that on each side of whatever beach that they were on, the fire hydrants were open and was just draining into the water or into the ocean. So my theory is the fastest and most expeditious way to get the fuel out of the lines is to what? To flush everything, open up those wells, let it go, because there's no reason why people should have fuel smell coming out of their pipes at home, right? If they are on completely separate water lines now, why is there fuel all of a sudden and those 3 water main breaks? But that's my theory.
I agree with it.
I mean, we've already seen in the very beginning. What, Xavier?
Real quick, just here's my survivor right here.
Hi.
Hello. So I'm gonna have to turn it off real quick because I shouldn't be driving like this, but it was good talking to you guys. Thank you so much, Mandy. I really appreciate you bringing light to help us help everybody in Kapilina since nobody else is helping. Sweet Tea, thank you so much. You've been down with us for the start. She's been getting us not only water but supplies. Oahu Water Protectors and Shutdown have also gotten us also supplies for animals, for the pets. We forget that the pets also were getting sick and drinking that water, And so we were getting things like pet bowls and stuff like that to change out because those things were contaminated. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. I got to go. But much love, much aloha.
Good to see
Mahalo.
you,
Hope to
Xavier.
see you before you run away.
Yeah. No, I'll come. Are you going to be at Kapilina tomorrow? I'll be there.
No, I have sports.
Okay. I'll text you because I got socks for you, okay? For the old folks.
Oh, awesome.
All right?
Yeah.
For the kapuna.
So
All right, love you
I
guys.
can't take full. Love you too. See you later. I
Okay.
can't take full credit. It was actually because of my TikToks. Another TikToker who had way more following than I did, Kanaka Katie, she reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, what can we do?" And so we kind of brainstormed, and she started the Amazon wish list. And so I don't think I had school at the time, or my classes were super easy. But any chance that I could, I would go drive out to Kapilina and, you know, literally door deliver it to whoever requested it and wanted. And yeah, so that's what we did to try to help them. And then, you know, Aiden got the ball rolling with that, and he's still doing it. I wish
I
I could
love that. And you're not
I wish
even
I
living
could
there
help some
anymore.
more.
There's
Yeah,
a
I wish I
special
could help
place in
more,
heaven for people like you, T. For both of you.
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
I love T so much because she you know, she doesn't live in an infected area. I mean, I know her brother lives out there or lived out there, but you know, she was driving pretty much a couple times during the week to drop off supplies and stuff when she didn't have to. And that, you know, that was before we did our distros and stuff. So in the beginning, a lot of our supplies was coming from T and the donations and stuff that she was able to get for our community.
Well, that's awesome. Honestly, I just I've wanted to talk about Kapilina for a long time, and as much as I kick and scream even with the military, I mean, you guys have seen me lately, like even with the water mains, like,
Yeah.
what about Kapilina? And I just
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
I every time I see one of your comments, I try and like, because you always beat me to the punch. I try and get on there, and I'm like, what about Kapilina? What about the civilians? You guys are forgetting. And then I see your I'm like, she already got it. I don't even need to say anything. She already got it.
It's
But
just so
that's
I've been
like, I mean,
screaming Kapilina. I mean, you'd think I have a residence there, but I just you would appreciate this too, right? Because
yeah,
well, you both would, because you both have served, right? Like it's just a really hard thing for me, you know, being a service member and knowing that my own employer has not only done this to my family, but has done this to so many people, especially our civilians.
yeah,
And it's not only that it's happened, right? It's how they've been treated afterwards, as if they are just collateral damage, like on, you know, on the battlefield. And that's just not how we treat our own people. And so for me, I know, especially with the folks out in Kapilina, I do recognize that our military families, you know, have gotten some of the support and resources that they need. Maybe not as fast as we wanted them to, but they've come through on that. But don't even get me started on a medical piece, though. That's a whole different conversation. But for Kapilina, I never saw, like, that never happened. And that was always the feedback. And here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, Navy problem, Navy water line. And where is the Navy? I mean, like, it's as simple as you're putting out on your Joint Base website for all your 93,000 people that are impacted, including Kapilina, where your water discharge points are. And you're not putting anything about Kapilina. Like
right,
you are distributing water to them, but why aren't you talking about it? Why?
right,
Because they're all civilians? Like because they're not in a military base? Like it doesn't matter. They are part of the 93,000. You cannot treat them like they don't matter.
yep,
And so that's just been really frustrating for me as a service member to be like, come on, we've got to treat our people better than this.
yeah. No, that
All of our people.
it's frustrating for me too for the exact same reasons. And you know, I was actually telling Xavier this today. Like, I love that the media and news is covering it, and even here on the mainland. But what frustrates me is whenever I read these news articles or I watch the news reports, is they're only talking about the military members and family members that were affected. And of course, my heart goes out to you guys. And you know, some of the families on the base obviously were more affected than us out at Kapilina. But it frustrates me because it's like they're forgetting, even in the news, they're forgetting about the civilians. And it's like that that's not okay. So whenever I see it, I try and comment, and I'm like, hey, there's residents out at Kapilina that were affected. My family was one of them. There's residents that are still dealing with this out at Kapilina. That's Old Navy housing. They're civil, you know, and I've tried to reach out to some reporters and journalists like, hey, here's what you probably should have added to your story because there are civil, but you know,
And I also know it's one of my biggest frustrations too. And you know, I'm not a civilian on Hawaii, and I'm not from Hawaii, and I can't even imagine. I can't begin to imagine how incredibly frustrating that is. But I just want to assure you that, you know, I don't say no to many to many news interview like requests, right? And I always try to speak. Obviously, like, it sucks because I'm a service member and it's happened to like by my own people, to my own people, but it's also that's not it. Like it doesn't stop there. It
Yeah.
is such a bigger issue. And that's why when we went out to DC, it was very important for me to have the Oahu Water Protectors there. It was very important for me to ensure that they had a voice too.
That's good.
And I was like, most recently, the biggest, you know, thing that came out was the ABC piece that just came out. I didn't even share it because I was so fucking pissed off about it. But like, when they contacted me, I gave them a list, like Ernie Lau, Mikey, Andre Perez, like all these people, right? Wayne Tanaka. These are the people that you need to speak to, and you're going out to freaking Hawaii, right? And like, thanks for contacting me. I don't live there anymore. I'm glad to speak to you, and I'm happy to tell you what's going on with my family. But like, these are the people that you need to speak to. But for some reason, that whole thing was bamboozled, and that's really frustrating to me. So we have got to just do better to keep pushing that narrative. Like, the Navy wants to control the narrative, but we have got to.
Well, that's the military for you, right? Whenever there's bad press, they got to control it. And they're never gonna. Here's a crappy thing too that I just want to say for the non-military people is, don't expect too much from the military because they're not gonna ever 100% completely own this. They're not. And I mean, it's unfortunate because we all know it's the Navy's fault. We all know it, but they're never gonna 100% own it. They're not. So if that's what people are wanting and expecting, lower your expectations.
Yeah. Well, everyone else has dropped off, but I'm so glad I got to talk to you. I know that we've talked, you know, on social, and, you know, we've been supporting each other from afar, and I'm certainly supporting your family from afar as well. But I really appreciate all of you guys coming on here. I appreciate everything that you're still doing, not even living there. And just, you know, continuing to fight and just offering your time and your money and just your advocacy and your voice to this fight. And so
I appreciate everything you're doing too, not just for, obviously, I mean, even though I'm pissed off at the military, the military still holds a very special place in my heart because I served, a lot of my family members served. My grandpa, you know, he was the highest ranking NCO when he was in the Navy. He retired from the Navy. So even though I'm pissed off at the Navy, I still love my military brothers and sisters. So I appreciate you not only speaking for them, but also for all the civilians and stuff too, and all the work that you're doing as well, because you're out there, you're everywhere, which is good. It is a good thing though, because and I know there are people that want to stand up and speak out, but they're scared. You know, there's military people that want to tell their stories, but they can't, for one, and they're scared to. And there's civilians that want to, but they're also scared because they don't want to be kicked out of Kapilina. They have nowhere else to go. I mean, and I'll be honest, in the beginning, I was kind of scared to say something because I was like, where are we going to go? But at the same time, we weren't getting any help. And it's like, no, this is not okay. Someone has to say something. So if I can leave with anything, I know people are scared and they don't want to speak up, and that's fine. That's okay. Reach out to us who are willing to speak up and speak out to tell your guys' stories if you're, you know, okay with that. But also just don't give up. I mean, we're all in this together. Unfortunately, you know, I've met some really awesome people through this. I wish the circumstances were different, but I also, in a way, wouldn't change it because I've made so many awesome connections. So if people need support, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in Vegas now. There is a crazy time difference, but I also have insomnia from when I served. So, and I have a 3-year-old, so I never sleep. So, you know, I'm just a phone call, message away. Feel free to reach out to me, even if you just need an ear, just someone to listen to you vent, listen to you cry. I mean, I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Aiden, again for joining this unofficial official platform. I think it's so important to continue to talk
Yeah,
about it. And
anytime, anytime.
I appreciate you talking about like speaking out and just everything that has happened. I feel, you know, like the fact that Red Hill is actually shutting down, the fact that, you know, defueling is about to start. I mean, I feel like that's the power of the people. We the people,
It is.
right? And you know, speaking out is not everyone's cup of tea, right? But there are other ways to help this cause. Um, even with like donations and things like that. Like there are so many ways for people to get involved. And that's why I wanted to create this platform so that everyone can like share their voice, share their story without, you know, fear this is just going on like my page. Um, but then also to like put out information, like ways that you can help if speaking out is not something that is not your strong point or something that you don't feel like you're comfortable with, that's fine. But there are so
It's
many
not
other
my
ways.
strong point. I hate
Yeah.
talking to people.
That surprises the hell out of me because you've been amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, I'm praying for your family. I hope that you guys are getting the care that you need and just being out of the toxic environment. And I look forward to keeping in touch. And
Yeah,
again,
if you're
one
ever
last
in
call for some.
Vegas, let
Wait,
me
say
know.
again.
I said, if you're ever in Vegas, let me know.
I mean, you were a quick hop. I think it cost like $20 to get to Vegas from Colorado. So
Yeah.
I will. I'll hit you out next time I'm there.
All right. I will, when we end this live, I'll send you that information for the shutdown Red Hill and stuff.
Perfect. Yep. All
All
righty.
right.
Have a good night. Bye,
You
Eden.
too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.